understand the true meaning behind the promised land, we will continue to explore the fascinating stories and rich histories of this land in the following series. We will take you on a journey through the heart of Egypt to try and uncover the history and culture of the early settlement of the children of Israel. As mentioned in the Torah, this early settlement was also known as the land of Goshen. Prophet Yusuf once successfully interpreted the dream of an Egyptian king. As a token of appreciation, Yusuf was presented with a plot of land, and in this way, he saved the country and the people from poverty and drought. We will also reveal the tales and histories of the Pharaoh and of Allah's prophets as they have been described in the Quran. The life of the Prophet Musa has often been mentioned in the Torah, the Bible, and the Quran. And in these holy books, there is also mention of a pharaoh that lived during the time of the Prophet Musa. This pharaoh has often been remembered as being ruthless and unjust towards the children of Israel and towards the followers of the Prophet Musa. However, none of the holy books mention the true identity of this pharaoh. To discover who he really was, we will investigate what has been illustrated about him in the Quran. Could he possibly have been the first Seti, or Ramses the second, or perhaps even Meneptah? There is a famous tale of the Nile River that has been mentioned in the Quran. Prophet Musa's mother was worried for the safety of her baby boy, as the great pharaoh of the time had commanded that all male boys be killed. But she was put at ease after Allah revealed to her what has been recorded in Surah Al-Qasas, Ayat 7.
وأوحينا إلى أم موسى أن أرضعيه فإذا خفت عليه فألقيه في اليم ولا تخافي ولا تحزني إنا رادوه إليك وجاعلوه من المرسلين.
We revealed to Musa's mother, "Suckle him, and then when you fear for him, cast him into the sea. So do not fear or grieve. We will return him to you and make him one of the messengers." After receiving this message from Allah, the Prophet's mother was overwhelmed with calmness. She felt assured that her baby boy would become a prophet and convey the message of faith from the holy book, the Torah, sharing its knowledge with his followers. To further investigate the identity of the pharaoh mentioned in the Quran, we look into the history and secrets of the Nile and its civilization. The Nile River has two major tributaries, the White Nile and the Blue Nile. Victoria Lake in Jinja is located 87 kilometers away from Kampala city in Uganda and is the source of the White Nile. To find the source of the Blue Nile, it was necessary for us to visit Bahir Dar, a small town in central Ethiopia. The largest lake in the country and the source of the Blue Nile is a lake called Lake Tana, although it is known by the locals as the Abai. The river flows straight into North Africa and merges with the White Nile in Mugran, a place in Durman, Khartoum in Sudan. It is here in Khartoum that both the Blue and the White Nile come together and the water from both rivers flow into Egypt. What impact did the Pharaoh's invasion have here? Find out in this series. Journeying across the Nile, we find several ancient Egyptian monuments, among them the Meroe Pyramids. They are the remains of the ancient Egyptian government that once existed in Sudan. The structures of these buildings are much smaller in comparison to the majority of the pyramids along the Nile. This only leaves one to question as to why they are as such. According to historians, this pyramid was in fact built after the Great Pyramid of Giza that is found in South Cairo. Sudan was once under the rule of the ancient Egyptian government, although the vast population of Sudan was made up of Nubians. Between Egypt and Sudan, there is a magnificent monument located along the riverbank. It is about 30 meters in height and is set to face the rising sun. It was built as a symbol of the pharaoh's superiority during his conflict with the Nubians in the Kadesh War. This is the Abu Simbel Temple. Observing the illustrations on the wall of this temple, we discover an account of how the Nubians were conquered by the pharaoh during the Kadesh War. The sketches also narrate a series of events that took place during their defeat. They exist to prove the power and superiority of the pharaoh's reign. Many researchers that have written on ancient Egypt say that the construction of the Abu Simbel Temple was merely to scorn the Nubians on their defeat in the war. But the Kadesh War is not the only fascinating story that can be found here. The Temple of Abu Simbel has some relevance to the stories from the Quran. Could it be that Ramses II is the pharaoh who mocked and oppressed the Prophet Musa for his advocations of the teaching of Allah? Surah Az-Zukhruf, Ayat 51, reveals such a situation.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ونادى فرعون في قومه قال يا قوم أليس لي ملك مصر وهذه الأنهار تجري من تحتي أفلا تبصرون.
Pharaoh called to his people, saying, "My people, does the kingdom of Egypt not belong to me? Do not all of these rivers flow under my control? Do you not then see?" Located 488 kilometers north of Abu Simbel, there is another remnant of a pharaoh who is said to have lived during the time of the Prophet Musa. The Temple of Luxor covers an area of almost 1 kilometer squared and was built by the pharaoh Amenhotep III in the 15th century BC. This temple was built to worship the sun god Ra. Dozens of columns were built here as a symbol of their pride in having completed the building. When the Christian reign fell over Egypt, the temple was turned into a church. Then later, when the Muslims came to rule here, a part of the temple was used as a mosque. The northern structure of the mosque and the Temple of Luxor is still fully intact. The mosque was named Jami Abu Hagag, and the pillars used in its construction have in fact been taken from the Temple of Luxor itself. Who among the three of the pharaohs were hostile towards the Prophet Musa? Find out when we return. Egypt is a gift from the Nile. These were the exact words used by an ancient Yunani historian, Herodotus, while describing Egypt. From this breathtaking aerial view atop an air balloon, we can see all of Allah's beautiful creations and the exact crossing of the Nile. According to scholars, the Prophet Idris first began his preachings in the way of Allah along the valley of the Nile. It's plain to see that the Nile has played a very crucial role in the development of civilization in this area. And it's because of this important role that the Prophet Idris was able to spread his message and make the people along the valley recognize their gratefulness and gratitude for Allah's gifts. Is the Nile really the main factor of how Egypt has risen to become such a glorious civilization? Egypt has been mentioned in the Quran 5 times and is a country overflowing with a fascinating history of the Muslims. This is the land of Kinana, a place rich in history of the prophets, among them the story of the Prophet Idris. Prophet Idris's teachings is said to have significantly influenced the religion of the ancient Egyptians. He is in fact known among Egyptian historical researchers as the father of civilization. Historians have speculated and suggested that the statue of Abu Hul, more commonly known as the Sphinx of Giza, is the face of the Prophet Idris. We will later reveal the secret of the Sphinx's construction. On our journey, we arrived to an area known as Til Amarna. This was once the central government during the Akhenaten reign. In the opinion of two ancient Egyptian researchers, Dr. Maurice Bouquet and Dr. Ahmed Osman, the religion of the pharaoh Akhenaten was very similar to the teachings of the Prophet Yusuf. Later, we will discover the story of this pious pharaoh. We find ourselves in Aswan in South Egypt. These illustrations have been found on a stone from an ancient Egyptian king. They narrate a story very similar to that of the Prophet Yusuf when he interpreted a pharaoh's dream. The story of the dream is mentioned in the Quran in Surah Yusuf, ayat 43, but in the Quran, the pharaoh is referred to as a king.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وقال الملك إني أرى 7 بقرات سمان يأكلهن 7 عجاف و7 سنبلات خضر وأخر يابسات يا أيها الملأ أفتوني في رؤياي إن كنتم للرؤيا تعبرون.
The king declared, I dreamt of 7 fat cows, which 7 thin cows ate, and 7 green ears of wheat, and 7 others which were dry. O counselors, explain my dream to me if you are those who can interpret visions. We will reveal in detail the story of the dream, and we will discover whether the Prophet Yusuf was married to Zulaykha or Asenath binti Fauta Farah. Is it true that the Prophet Musa was once swept away on the Nile? We will look into the story of the Prophet Musa and his beloved stepmother who cared for him. We will also look into the great history of the children of Israel who wandered around the desert for 40 years after they refused to fight alongside the Prophet. Surah Al-Ma'idah, Ayat 26. He said, "The land will be forbidden to them for 40 years, during which they will wander aimlessly about the earth. Do not waste grief on these deviant people." The miracle of the Prophet Musa was that he saved the children of Israel while they were wandering about the desert, and Allah brought down to them an abundance of food from the sky. We go to Sudan to try and find Al-Manna, a place that has been mentioned in the Quran. There have even been a few issues raised concerning whether the quails mentioned in the Quran refer to the same birds that still exist today. Or was Al-Manna lifted back up by Allah after it had been brought down to the earth? Dr. Ihsan Siddiq, a Sudanese medical expert on alternative medicine, carried out an in-depth study on the secrets and benefits of Al-Manna. He is responsible for questioning the existence of Al-Manna, which can be found in Sudan. Was this the same Al-Manna that was brought down by Allah to the children of Israel? We will uncover the truth about the abundance of food that came from the sky. We will discuss many issues in regard to the stories of the period of the Prophet Yusuf and the Prophet Musa. Was it the first Seti or Ramses II who lived during the period of the Prophet Musa? We will also set off for the location of where the story of the splitting ocean took place, the event of Exodus as mentioned in the Samawi books. Stay tuned in this series of stories from the times and find out more about the Goshen land.